Hello, I am your host, Kaylee, and I would like to welcome Christian Bladt from the Bladcast, from Who Are These Broadcasters, and so much more to the murder game. The murder game is a hypothetical thought exercise where Christian's goal is going to be to off as many people as possible using unlimited resources. But he's not allowed to use bombs or poison, so he's going to have to get creative to outsmart his targets. My task is to challenge him every step of the way. In the murder game, you don't care about getting caught, but if you do, the game ends. How far will Christian go to outwit his enemies and achieve a high score? Now, let's get into the fake crime and find out Christian's solution to the murder game. Welcome to the most twisted game of all, the murder game. This hypothetical thought exercise has one goal: eliminate as many people as you possibly can. It's all about numbers, no moral compass, just a thirst for chaos. Just 3 simple rules. Rule 1, unlimited resources. Money, technology, influence. You have everything at your fingertips. Rule 2, poison, bombs, off the table. Don't rely on usual methods. This game is for the creative, the cunning, the brilliant. It's your mind against the masses. Rule 3, you don't care about getting caught or eliminated, but once you are, the game ends. Count the bodies, the highest number wins. Are you ruthless enough to play the murder game? Christian, thank you so much for being here.
I'm very excited to be here. Happy murdering to you, Kaylee. Or you're trying to stop it, but when you told me about this idea, I was like, wow, that is wild. But I love the idea because, there's so many podcasts out there that all seem kind of the same. I do a couple podcasts that are all very similar to each other, but this is a very unique idea, and I was excited to do this one.
The best thing about the murder game is that it allows for creativity. So you get to be weird and wacky with this as much as you want to be. We all have so much going on in our real lives. It's nice to do a little escapism every so often, huh?
Yeah, and escapism equals high death toll, at least
Yes.
in the world of the murder game. So, yeah. So the way that I started thinking about this was I want to be able to take advantage of a situation where people are in need, which is, of course, just an incredibly diabolical thought. But
Yes, you're so evil.
once you started these wheels turning, so I thought about, okay, you want to capitalize on possibly a snowstorm, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
hurricane, and
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of situations like that now. Because I live in Southern California, we unfortunately just had some just very devastating and tragic wildfires. But as part of my idea, I would set one of these wildfires, and it's not so much expecting to get a lot of people from the fire. So what I want to do is take advantage of people who are, because it's very easy, as we found, to start these wildfires. Sometimes it's just a transformer explosion, a stray spark. One of the fires out here, they do believe, was started by some faulty equipment by the power company.
Yeah.
And there was a tragic fire in Northern California, a town called Paradise, where it was proven that it was the electric company had a transformer explode and just wiped out the whole town. So obviously, I hear these stories of sadness and tragedy and horror, Kaylee, and I think, how could I make them worse? So
Yes.
now I understand the rules for the murder game is that you can't have accomplices, but I have a
Correct.
question about unwitting accomplices. So having people who are hired to act as private first responders and try and help gather up people, would that be allowed?
Yes. So you can hire people to do tasks for you.
Yes.
The idea of not having accomplices is you can't get caught. Now,
Right.
you don't care so much if you get caught by the authorities or if you get caught by one of your friends. As soon as somebody figures you out, that is when you are officially caught. So, if you can trick your accomplices into doing your bidding for you without them realizing your scheme, you can use them left and right. You can do whatever you want with them.
Yeah. Now, I think a lot of times people will have goons or lackeys to do the dirty work for them. I would actually get people to do the clean work for me. I would do the dirty work. So they're helping out. They're helping out people. So what I would want to do is to take advantage of a situation. And I think it's too hard for a naturally occurring, as I mentioned, a hurricane or snowstorm or anything like that. It's too hard to take advantage of those things. So I think I
Yeah.
need to cause it. I think it
Yeah.
has to be a man-made disaster, and I'm just the man for that disaster.
And you are exactly correct. The wildfires, all you need is the exact right wind conditions, and
Yeah.
that can set things off into a literal blaze. Now, I did just do a little bit of research because I was curious, and I know that you said that this is not your ultimate plan, but I was very curious. So, in the most recent wildfires in California, I am seeing a death toll of 29. And
Yes.
in the Paradise fires, I am seeing a death toll of 85. So,
Yes.
if it was just your goal to set the fires, if that was your entire plan, I would say you're probably going to get someplace under 100.
Yeah,
But
I would say 50 is what I
yeah,
would think. Yeah.
yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Now, something interesting about setting fires, which I have not heard a solution for setting fires ever before, is that you could theoretically go and set fires in a bunch of different places. So
Correct.
you have unlimited resources, which means you could set fires in California and then go and fly somewhere else and set fires somewhere else. And as long as you were fast enough and nobody realized that you were the one setting the fires, you could potentially have these death tolls in multiple cities.
Well, that there's running the risk of getting caught. So perhaps,
Absolutely.
as here in Southern California, we had multiple fires in different spots, I would triangulate probably 3 or 4 fires, all in
Okay.
a similar area. So people are evacuating their homes, and plenty of people have places to go somewhere safe. But then, what if you have to evacuate the place you went to?
Mm,
Ultimately, what you're going to end up with is one of these shelters of last resort. Now, in the case of Hurricane Katrina, that was the Superdome, and that has a capacity of 83,000 people. So
yes.
I am not going to aim so high that I feel like I could take out 83,000 people. But I do feel like if you can, say, in my scenario, somewhere like the the forum or possibly crypto.com arena, which used to be known as Staples Center, I could get 20,000 people without anywhere to go in those
Yep.
places. Now, I can't use a bomb and I can't
Yep.
use gas, which that would be a perfect way to use when you have people literally with nowhere else to go trapped inside. But I can't do that. So I would basically go for the good old fashioned way. I would have, again, unlimited resources. I
Yes.
would be using a cache of assault rifles and just take out as many people as I possibly could. And I'd like to think I could get 1,000 um, because people would be very disoriented. I would certainly turn off the power. And, you would hear it, but you wouldn't know where to go. And I think that ultimately, not wanting to get caught, sure is, but I'm willing to for the cause of, you know,
For the high
getting rid of the
numbers.
surplus population, as Ebenezer Scrooge would say. So I feel like you create the desperation, you drive people to a singular location, in some cases metaphorically, but also I have this team of first responders that's like, well, look, you're out of your house. Do you have somewhere to go? Great. We've been paid handsomely to take you to this arena. It doesn't even have to be one of those, but I think if you triangulate it properly, it'd be somewhere like that. But you could have like the Santa Monica Civic Center. There are places like that, just depending on where exactly. I haven't mapped it out because I didn't want to go that far, Kaylee. I didn't want to actually try to make this plan work. I don't want my
I
hard drive to have maps with pinpoints on them.
That's probably a smart
Yeah,
choice. I
I
will
think so.
say the murder game a little bit suspicious, just a teensy bit. I love the idea of hurting people.
Yeah.
So I have thought a lot when it comes to the murder game about um, hitting areas where there are dense populations. So, for
Sure.
example, a Taylor Swift concert. You don't even necessarily need to herd people for that. You just go to a Taylor Swift concert. And that is very interesting. But the problem is that we have real life examples of shooters, of mass shooters, who have gone to these populated areas. And in the very most, in the high number game for those mass shooters, it has never been above 80. So the problem with shooting is definitely that the people who have wanted to do this the most have given us the real life example of we get around 80 if we are trying our darndest. That being said, none of those people have ever been put into the desperation place that you are describing from hurting them. And that is really interesting. So, your idea is get them all in one place. They're already a train wreck because they are, in this mass hysteria. Not only that, probably none of them have grabbed their guns from home when they were fleeing the fires.
No,
That's not
not
one of the things that you get.
not somewhere like this. Not somewhere like Southern California. I'm not doing this in Montana. I'm not doing this in
Yeah.
Alabama, where they would
Yeah.
be armed. A good example for what you're talking about, and by good example, I mean obviously a horrific, terrible example, but
Yeah.
the November 2015 attacks in Paris at the Bataclan Theater.
Mm-hmm.
So 130 people were killed. 90 inside the theater. There were 100 critically wounded and 7 of the attackers. So that is people that were there for a concert. It was for Eagles of Death Metal, as I recall. And
Yes.
that is a highly coordinated. There are a number of accomplices, but this is people that are there to relax. This is not people with nowhere else to go who, in the panic, don't know where to run to.
Yeah.
So
Well,
go ahead.
and not only that, I really like your idea of cutting the power. So we
Oh
have
yeah.
definitely never had a real life example of you have your night vision goggles and therefore you are majorly advantaged.
I think the Joker shooter in Colorado, I think he had night vision goggles. I'm fairly sure that he did. That wasn't that many people that they
Yeah,
got
I was
there,
going to
but
say I think he got around 10, which
yeah.
is horrifically
10,
sad,
10
but
too many, but I know what you're
yes.
saying. We're
Yes.
sort of looking at this unemotionally and
Yes.
just statistically. Yeah.
We don't like morality in the murder game.
No.
It's all hypothetical and
There's
having fun.
there's no room for morality in the murder game, Kaylee.
So this is interesting because you get people in two different ways. You get, let's say, 50 people from the fires.
Sure.
And then, in addition to getting those 50 people, you get whatever number you get in your murderous spree in your, in this refuge, which
Yeah.
again is evil. This is an evil
Oh, this is a
creative plan.
this is a
This is
particularly evil idea. Yeah. And I'm going to say I'm horrified at how easily this came to me. You talked to me about this weeks ago.
yeah.
I think that night I fell asleep with happy dreams of how I could do this. Now I had questions about what I could do, so I don't get to have like an assassin squad who is helping me.
Correct.
But I'm doing it myself. It's all right. I'm
Yeah.
getting my hands dirty in the honor and the tradition, the proud tradition of the murder game.
Yeah. I think that the most clever thing that you are doing here, which is really wonderful, is the idea of having people already be in a panic. And that makes them extremely disadvantaged when it comes to fleeing or getting out of your escape. And again, you're going to have lots of first responders there, even if you didn't hire first responders. Let's say that you did not end up doing that. The first responders who are there are going to have medical supplies. They aren't going to be cops who are ready to take you out. So I think
Correct.
that your solution to the murder game, it ends in you dying. At some point, somebody figures out how to get the lights on. At some point, you get killed. That's fine. Not a
Yeah,
big
so
deal.
even
You
if
don't care
no
about
one,
that.
like in the hypothetical, even if no one in the arena is armed,
Yeah.
eventually the lights will be on and they'll just descend upon
Somebody
me
will.
and they'll beat me senseless. Yeah.
Yes,
And by
exactly.
senseless, I mean dead.
Yes, somebody will eventually stop you
Yeah.
with death. However, again, you don't care about that.
No.
I think this is a really, really interesting and unique solution to the murder game. I'm trying to think now if there are any other ways. So again, I'm really fixated on the idea of these people being herded to a specific location. I think there's a major advantage to that as opposed to just going to a location that already is crowded. For example, one of my friends in the past told me, well, my solution to the murder game would be to go on Black Friday to a crowded mall. I would lock the doors and I would start shooting. And I said, that's a horrible solution to the game because somebody will take you down very quickly. You will be identified, somebody will risk their life, and you will be out.
Also, especially on Black Friday, there is extra security, armed security. Now, not every security guard is going to be armed, but you had better believe that some of them will be armed, you know?
Exactly. So my response to that was, I don't think you get more than 10 like that. I think you're
Yeah.
lucky if you get 10.
And really, that's going to probably be less than people get trampled trying to get a flat screen TV for $20, you know? So, yeah.
Exactly. I completely agree. That's as much of their own volition as it is
Yeah.
on your doing. And I don't know that you get to take credit for that so
No,
much.
those don't go in the tally.
No,
Yeah,
no, they
we
do
could
not.
call those a happy accident if you
Yes.
must, but a little cherry on top.
Oh, God. I wish Bob Ross could play this game. I wish he could.
Uh,
Okay, so did you consider any other methods of extermination once people are actually in the arena?
well, I did think about also setting fire to the arena, and then we would have to
Mm,
lock the doors.
yep.
I do think that that is a little bit of a slower build, a slow burn, not a pun intended, but literally a slow burn. So I did think about that, and I felt like people would be able to get away. People could force a door open. So I thought the lights out. And yes, I guess I could simultaneously set a fire or somewhere, in there. And then once that happens, those like flash grenades that I mostly see in movies, that sort of a thing. It's kind of a bomb though, so I don't think that that counts. So but I did think about that, but I also felt like I don't have as much control over that situation. The fire can be run away from, so I felt like people being trapped in the dark, and you have a few minutes where no one realizes exactly what's going on. It's absolute chaos. And if the murderer in question has their night vision goggles on, then they'll be able to see everyone and really just have at it.
So I am looking up right now because I was curious about this. I do think fire continues to be interesting for your solution here.
Okay.
So the thing that I looked up, which I think gives us an interesting real life example of this, is the station nightclub fire, the nightclub fire when Great White was performing, and people in a stampede effort to try to get out.
Correct.
It ended up killing 100 people.
And that was only a few nights ago was the anniversary of that. I know this is just when we're recording it, but yeah. And I have not watched more than a few seconds of it, but there's video of inside the station nightclub fire. And I've seen a documentary about it, though. And it's horrifying because there are doors that people tried to open in that case, but they were locked because they were trying to only have paying customers. So
Yeah.
only people who went out through the back were able to get out. So if you were
Yeah.
up by the stage, you didn't get out. If you were close to the back, you were like, "Oh wow, and it happened really fast."
Really
So
fast.
yeah, that's a
And
that's a
and
horrific example. Yeah,
obviously there were not 10,000 people in that venue.
no,
Just as an aside, because it's related to what we're talking about, I was supposed to be at that show.
you were
And
going
I
to see
just,
Great White in Rhode Island
I
that night.
was. Yes.
And it's Jack Russell's Great White with Mark
Yep.
Kendall playing guitar, a sort of a weird pairing of the two different factions of Great White. Wow. What made you
So
decide to not go?
I ended
That's a
up not
podcast in
going.
and of itself,
I,
talking to people who were supposed to be in places, like a guy who stayed home from
yeah.
work on 9/11 just because he was hungover or whatever.
Yep. Absolutely. So I was planning on going. It was a long drive from here. I don't remember why we had decided that we were going to go to that show. My vague recollection is that it was a school night or I had something to do. I was in high school at the time. There was some reason that prevented me from going, and I was like, it's a long enough way away. I'm not going to do it. And I was going to go with a couple of my friends, and my mom woke me up the next morning. It was still newspaper days. And so
Yeah.
she had gotten the newspaper and she saw that the fire had happened, and she was just, she woke me up screaming. She was like,
Yeah.
thank God you didn't go. Thank God you didn't go.
And what would that have taken, like 5 hours to get there or something? I
I
mean,
think it's
maybe more.
longer than that. I
Yeah.
think it's longer than I
I
used to travel a lot for concerts. I used to be
well,
a total concert fanatic and I would drive all over the place for them.
Well, I've always been fortunate that I've lived my entire life in the New York City market or the Los Angeles. So I've never really had to drive too far for concerts. I have when I'm like, oh, I want to see this band a couple of times, I will. But I do know I hear our mutual friend Carl talk sometimes about like concerts that he'll go to, and not everybody comes there. So it's like, yeah, I got to drive 3-4 hours, and it's like you kind of get in that habit. But a 7-8 hour drive to go and see Great White.
Great White in
Yeah. In
2003.
2000,
Not
yeah, right. This isn't, yeah, exactly. This isn't like going to the Unplugged taping to watch them do Once Bitten, Twice Shy. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah.
No,
Wow.
I feel extremely fortunate that I ended up not going. That was a wonderful thing and an incredibly tragic event. But I do think that you can kind of double down with that as our example, with that as our horrific real life example. You can kind of double down on this plan that you have, which is that you set the initial fires. Let's say low end on the initial fires, you get 10 people.
Sure, that's fine.
Let's say you get 10 people there. You then herd everybody into your arena, and one, you start fires, and two, you start shooting. You know you're going to die either way, so it doesn't matter if you die in a fire or if you die because somebody takes you out. You can potentially get, let's say, I think 100 is a low end number from starting fires.
Very low end, yes.
Because again, I can't actually find, I was just trying to look up how many attendees were actually at that concert.
The station fire, the Great White Fire.
Yes.
Right. I believe from the video and from images you can see that it was packed, but you don't actually know like how many
What the
tickets were sold.
capacity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
How many people were actually there? It had a capacity of 404 people.
Okay.
And there were 462 people in the club that night. So at anytime you read about it or you hear coverage of it, it was oversold. So that sounds accurate, actually, now that I'm reminded of that. So yeah, killed 100 people and injured 230 others. Yes.
Yes. So, let's say that you double down. You are at a vantage point in this arena, and you light the fires around the doors, and then you run up to your vantage point, and now you can either sharpshoot people or just go buck wild
It's more of like
with your
a
gun.
spray. That's what I
Yeah.
think, where it's
Yeah.
just, I guess I certainly could have the time to spend on training to become a sharpshooter. I would probably also have to get that LASIK eye surgery so that, I'm not having to worry about putting my regular glasses under my night vision goggles. So,
Well, on the plus side, unlimited resources and also unlimited time to enact your plans.
it's
So as
true.
long as you're not dead yourself, you can keep doing it. So I think go for the LASIK. As long as you're
Yeah,
splurging, enjoy LASIK. It'll be wonderful for you.
perfect.
Okay, so let's imagine that you are able to herd 10,000 people with this.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
get everybody evacuated. There's some small number of casualties from the initial fires. You are able to herd 10,000 people to whatever arena you pick. Perhaps you intentionally pick a smaller arena and oversell it, quote unquote. You
Right.
you overcapacity it, and people are willing to do that because they're desperate. Now you have all of these people in here, and all you have to do is set fires by each of the doors. You go to each one of the doors, you set a fire. People don't have a way of escaping, and now you can, again, open fire as much as you want. That is very interesting.
Well, it was a venue that I mentioned in passing. It was not my initial thought, but the Santa Monica Civic Center has a capacity of 3,000. So that is much smaller than Staples Center. It is also closer to areas that are prone to wildfires, mudslides, and such, and those events. It's out by the beach, so this is not far from the Palisades. It stands to reason that an event like that would drive people literally southward. So yeah, I think you're actually helping me kill more people, Kaylee, instead of providing obstacles to slow me down.
I know that I'm supposed to take the counterpoint on this, but I just have so much dang fun with the murder game that I want to create a better solution. It's
Yeah.
fun to get high numbers. It's fun. So, okay. This is my vision. This is my vision. I'm adding on to your vision. If you have a capacity of 3,000, I think that what you want to do is shoot for around 5,000. I don't think you want to totally blow capacity because at some point it's going to be so much that it becomes absurd.
Sure, that's fair.
All you need to do is create those stampedes because, again, a lot of the people who passed away in that Great White Fire were, it was due to stampeding as much as it was due to pyrotechnics. So, as long as people are trying to escape and unable to for one reason or another, you're going to create enough chaos that people are going to do this to themselves.
Yeah, and in terms of not a disaster on par with Great White, there's this infamous Who concert in 1979 in Cincinnati, where 11 people were trampled and died as thousands of people went for the exits at the same time, and so. It does stand to reason that, especially if it's carefully engineered by working out laws of averages, by having so many resources as I do, you could really come up with a way to maximize the number of tragedies that you could cause.
Yes, absolutely. So, the Great White concert, again, I think that that's a good example because I
Yeah.
do think that that is the idea of people packed in as sardines and very helpless in a very tragic way. 20% of the people who went to that concert passed away. More than
Wow,
20%.
that's crazy.
That's a gigantic number. When we think about that 20%, if you were to pack in 5,000 people to this 3,000 person arena, which is approximately the same overselling that they did at the Great White concert, if you were to do that, we're looking at what, 20% of 5,000,
Yeah. Are you
which
trying to do the math?
I'm
Because
so bad at math. That's the easiest math in the world. The answer is 1,000. The answer is a
yeah,
thousand.
this
We
is
should
kind
have
of what
both
we're
been able to
talking
figure
about.
that
I
out.
know. I had. It's almost like if I didn't have the ability to look it up, I would have tried to figure it out. But instead, I'm like, what does Google say?
Yeah, no, it's funny because I have a degree in math and I still couldn't figure that out.
Oh
So,
no, I'm a math dummy,
yeah.
as we can say. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that you are looking at, let's say, I always like to kind of give an estimate of what your high end number is and what your low end number is.
Sure.
I think that easily with this solution, your low end number, and this is extremely low, would be 500.
I
We are
agree. Yeah.
assuming we are assuming approximate numbers of what we have seen in real life wildfires plus real life numbers of what we have seen in real life stampede situations. I think that because you have those inflated numbers of the number of people who you have packed in, 500 seems reasonable. I
Yeah.
think your high end number, though, I think that you could probably, I think, let's say 1,000 in the arena as the ones who are trying to escape and not succeeding at escaping. Let's say that you have 20 in the actual wildfires themselves. How many people do you think that you could shoot before you either perish in the fire or before somebody takes you out?
Well, I do have my night vision goggles. I would obviously have some kind of breathing apparatus so that
Up,
I did not succumb to the smoke, because obviously you're having people burned alive, but you're also having
mm-hmm.
people who succumb to the smoke and as the
Inhalation.
fire spreads. Yeah. So um, I think that is, I don't know how many people you can actually shoot in a minute. I didn't really think about it, with one of those, if you're basically like shooting ducks in a barrel, I don't know, but I do feel as though hundreds is not unreasonable. And how long are people going to be disoriented and confused and just in a panic? Because again, we have locked all the doors and at the exits, but even out to the concourse or really anywhere, everyone is sort of in the main area of this venue. So I don't think I want to say that I could, I think it's realistic that 1,000, but I think being a little bit more conservative, and 500 is a lot of people, but I feel like it is reasonable. So I feel like that range of 5 to 700 is not out of the question. But obviously, at some point, people will figure out where the bullets are coming from. But if they never get those lights back on, and I move enough,
Yeah.
you can go for a while. Because I'm not gonna be stationary.
Yeah,
You
of
know.
course, of course.
Yeah.
So I just looked this up and I'm just going to tell you what my Google search was because I think it's funny. I was like, I don't actually know how many bullets like a large magazine can hold. I was like,
Right.
I don't have a concept of that. So again, that will help us kind of determine the number of people per minute. The Google search that I just did was how many bullets do biggest guns hold?
Yeah.
Because I'm a smart lady.
How many how many bullets do biggest gun hold?
Yeah, so the answer is hundreds of rounds. They can
Yeah.
hold hundreds of rounds. Um, uh, so let's say that you have unlimited resources, so you don't even need to worry about reloading. You could set different guns in different places of this arena. You could have everything all set up and be ready to move from one location to another to get a different gun. I suppose then you risk that somebody else finds that gun before you do and takes you out. But I think that something that is a challenge when it comes to just spraying bullets all over the place is that if you spray bullets, you are definitely going to get some injuries, but not casualties.
Right.
There will be some people. So I would agree with you that you could probably get 700 people shot. I don't think all of those 700 people die.
It's a great point. Yeah, you're right.
I think that you probably of those 700 people, and again, when we look at real life mass shootings, we see that there are many more, vastly more injuries than there are actual casualties. I think that you could probably get a tenth ish. So let's say between 70 and 100 people of those people that you shoot actually die.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
That's still huge numbers when you look at everything combined. Because again, you got your wildfires, you got your mass panic because of the fire inside the arena, and you got those additional shooting victims. That's crazy. I think your high end number I think your high end number is probably someplace around 3,000. I think if everything went perfectly, like
Yeah.
if you succeeded in every way, in every single step, everything went ideally and according to plan, you get 3,000 in this easily. And that's with us messing with the numbers of how many people do you herd into the arena.
Yeah. Right, and we've put 5,000 people in a 3,000
Yeah.
capacity venue, and we have trapped them. So there's
Yes.
something to be said for that. And we've made it so that they can't get out, they can't see, and just I suppose that the shooter does have to keep moving. But I will have spent some of my resources in getting in slightly better shape than I am now, so that I could move
Yes.
around this crowded arena. So
You're not going to want to die after this. You're going to have LASIK. You're going to be in super good shape. You're going to want to live a great life for the rest of the time. So I
that's
guess
true.
now I think your number is 0 based on all of
Oh,
that.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Because I'm like, wait. I'm ready to do this, but instead, why don't I just use my unlimited resources and take a trip?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Instead, I was like, I'll text Kaylee. I was like, I was gonna go to. I was gonna murder all these people, but you want to meet up in Bermuda? Does that sound
Yes.
like fun? Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. This has been such a fun solution to the murder game. I am so glad this was an incredibly unique one. Again, I don't think that anybody has ever proposed to me either on this podcast or in my real life when I play this game with my actual friends who are
Yeah.
like, I'm going to be honest, I play it with my colleagues at work. Everybody thinks I'm the weirdo there for some reason. I don't even know why.
Mm.
But I think that I don't think I've ever heard anybody doing this idea of hurting people, hurting, like
Well,
you
it's because
creating the panic.
it's because of recent tragedy that I thought
Yeah.
of it, because you see like that kind of panic, that kind of desperation, and people got to have somewhere to go, and you can take advantage of it. When you engineer the panic, you're able to control the environment and
Yes.
single-handedly. Like I don't want to have accomplices that are also participating in the killing. You know,
Yes.
I need to have the little check marks. I want to be able to look around before I die in the Bon Jovi blaze of glory and say, killing is my business, and business
Yes.
is good.
Perfect. I love it. I think this was just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful solution to the murder game. I had a super fun time with it. Part of the thing that is so much fun about the murder game is the escapism, and we started out talking about that a little bit. It is fun to think about tragedy in a less than realistic way. So I really appreciate your creativity in this solution to the murder game. And before we sign off for the evening, I would love it if you would tell everybody a little bit about where they can hear you talk about things other than murder.
Yes, usually it's not something that I spend a lot of time talking about, but I did enjoy the escapism and talking about people who cannot escape themselves. And I think your audience would most appreciate knowing about who are these broadcasters, which you can subscribe to as an audio feed, but also the live show is on YouTube Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Who Are These Podcasts YouTube channel. And I have my own personal podcast, the Bladcast. Bladtcast, where we have done some fun shows lately talking about the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live with some of my friends that I was NBC Pages with. I've got a special episode coming up with with a few people, with Brian Slagle from Metal Blade Records, who I work with on a podcast called 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. But I'm going to have him, comedian Don Jameson, and this guy Mark Cicchini, who is on a Kiss podcast called Three Sides of the Coin. We are going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Alice Cooper's Welcome to My Nightmare, which
Ooh.
will be a fun one. So you can find that at the Bladcast, Bladtcast. And if you're a big nerd like me, I talk about Marvel stuff on a network called Geekscape, Geekskape. I didn't spell it right, Geekscape, but the way it sounds. And look, I'm on social media at Christian DMZ, but that's all the ways you can find me, Kaylee.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you again so much, Christian, for joining me. And thank you all for listening. Don't forget, I would love to hear your solution to the murder game. So if you ever want to be a guest, you can go ahead and contact me on Twitter. You can contact me through my email. All of that information will be linked in the show notes. And I would love to have you sometime soon because we know we all want to escape sometimes. Thanks so much for checking out The Fake Crime and have a great night. The Murder Game.